What you up to?
Nothing.
Doesn't look like nothing.
Okay. I'm trying to perfect the conversion process of waste into energy. My theory lies within the waste combustion process and eliminating carbon dioxide emissions. It's bound to win me the Nobel Prize.
Well, I think you're onto something pretty incredible. Did you know that some of this is happening now, just on a larger scale?
Really? Where?
Oh, all sorts of places. And one of the leaders in waste-to-energy processes is right here in Spokane.
Spokane, huh?
Yeah, I'll show you.
How'd you do that thing?
Trash. We all make it, but not everyone knows what happens to it after it hits the garbage can. We're going to show you how the Spokane Waste-to-Energy plant helps to preserve the environment. The people of Spokane recycle more than half their garbage each day, but after that, we're still tossing what's left. And that has a huge impact on the environment. Each of us can help solve the problem of trash, or we can make it worse. Many of us have overflowing garbage containers at home. Plus, there's the garbage from businesses, schools,
And sports arenas. Big events in parks. Hospitals. And construction sites. It's safe to say we all contribute to the garbage problem.
So what we do with this can have a huge impact on what happens to this. The first and most important part of the waste management plan is reduction.
Yes, reduction. To cut, decrease, or lessen.
We all need to figure out ways to make less garbage, like buying in bulk to reduce the amount of packaging we throw away.
And we shouldn't buy more than we need. That's wasteful too.
And remember, you can bring your own reusable grocery bag with you to cut down on paper and plastic waste. Nice bag. Also, buy more durables, things you can use over a long period of time, like a cloth lunch sack, a reusable sandwich container, or a drink bottle to cut way back on lunchtime trash. Another tip, think before you buy. Shopping impulsively can leave you with a lot of junk you don't really want or need.
And that junk more than likely will find its way into the garbage can.
Hollingsworth can stay. The next part of the waste management process is recycling.
Recycling, to reprocess or salvage. It's actually one of the greatest scientific breakthroughs of our time.
Yep, recycling, and it's easy. Metals, glass bottles, newspapers, and plastic containers with the number 1 through 7 in the recycling triangle.
And don't forget to recycle small catalogs, magazines, phone books, corrugated cardboard, brown paper bags, junk mail, office paper, all kinds of food boxes, and non-coated paper items.
And if you don't have curbside, check out buyback centers, drop boxes, or transfer station.
Don't forget, you can also recycle yard and garden debris, food scraps, and food-soiled paper boxes in your big green cart or at transfer stations.
The trash that's left over goes to energy recovery.
And that means?
Whatever we don't reduce, reuse, or recycle gets turned into electricity. This is Spokane's waste-to-energy facility. It basically burns garbage to generate electricity. The process also reduces the amount of waste that must be buried in landfills. The waste-to-energy facility was designed and built by Wheelabrator Spokane. It's one of many waste-to-energy plants that operate nationwide.
In September of 1991, Spokane's waste-to-energy plant changed the way we deal with our trash.
Today, the facility processes more than 800 tons of garbage each day. That's 800 tons not going into landfills.
And now a word from our sponsor.
This plant was partially funded by a grant from the Washington State Department of Ecology and is owned by the city of Spokane.
Businesses, families, and schools all send their trash to the waste-to-energy facility.
Remember, not everything has to be burned. So having a waste reduction plan in place, like recycling, is important.
Hey, nice trick. General public enters through the main gate. First, a stop at the recycling area. The more you unload here, the less garbage you have to throw away.
And the less you have to pay to dump.
You can recycle all the same items you recycle at curbside, plus household hazardous waste, like old paint, batteries, antifreeze, and of course, scrap metal. Then it's on to the scales, where you get weighed.
Excuse me?
Well, not you, your vehicle and your load get weighed.
I knew that.
Now on to my favorite part. Here's where you throw your garbage right on the floor.
Fun.
It's called the tipping floor, and there are areas for two different types of waste. This is the clean green part, where your yard debris, food scraps, and non-shiny food-soiled paper go back into the cycle through composting. And it'll save you money. This is the trash part. After you dump your garbage, a front-end loader pushes it from the floor into the pit.
There's also an area for commercial trucks to dump their loads.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you now?
Good, thanks. Then it's back to the scales to see how much weight you lost with your load and to pay accordingly.
And here's where the Clean Green program really pays off. Tipping fees for Clean Green are only a fraction of regular garbage fees.
If this facility is too far from where you live, there are also transfer stations serving the North County and the Spokane Valley. Both have recycling, household hazardous waste disposal, and garbage and Clean Green tipping areas, just like the main plant.
We make a lot more garbage in the summer than in the winter.
And in the winter, the amount drops considerably. A 9-ton capacity orange peel crane mixes the trash, combining the old with the new and the wet with the dry. That mixing process creates a consistent fuel for the fire.
Just like a campfire. If the fuel's too wet, it won't burn well. But if it's too dry, it will burn too fast.
Remember, you should never burn garbage outdoors or in your fireplace. The waste-to-energy plant has state-of-the-art pollution control equipment that prevents the release of dangerous gases into the air. As the crane operator mixes trash for the fire, sometimes he or she finds a larger item that won't burn well. A skilled operator with a steady hand and a sharp eye can pick just about anything out of the pit.
The facility actually has 2 cranes, but usually uses 1 at a time. Once the garbage is mixed, it's ready to be burned.
The plant burns garbage in 2 boilers where temperatures reach up to 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. The feeding point into each boiler is called the hopper. The crane operator fuels the fire by feeding 2 to 3 tons of garbage at a time in each one.
An interesting side note, some of the trash is wet and harder to burn. So once the trash is in the hopper, the ram feeder pushes it onto grates in the boiler. These grates have been designed specifically for solid waste. They move the trash through the burning process. Hot air from the fire dries the garbage in the drying zone.
Exactly. A good fire needs lots of oxygen, and they have just the place to get it. 2 huge fans move air from the pit areas and force it into the boilers through grates. And that leaves the tipping floor smelling fresh as a rose.
Well, almost. Waste contains dangerous compounds that can end up in our air after it's burned if it isn't handled properly.
The trash then enters the combustion zone, the second stage of burning.
The high temperature of the fire destroys dangerous organic compounds like furans and dioxins that can be found in waste.
The third stage on the grates is final burnout. Final burnout ensures complete combustion, leaving a sterile, stabilized ash. The grates where the smelly air comes through makes up the floor of the boilers. The inner walls of each boiler are made up of a series of tubes filled with water. The hot fire heats up the water, which can get to over 800 degrees Fahrenheit.
This high-pressure steam moves through a series of pipes into the turbine. The steam then turns sets of fan blades attached to a shaft in the turbine.
Precisely. And at the other end of the shaft is a huge magnet. And that spinning magnet converts steam energy into electricity. And that electricity moves out into a switching station and on to users. The process generates about 170 million kilowatt hours of electricity per year. That's enough to supply the energy needs of 13,000 homes.
And from the ton of garbage that your household puts on the curb each year, enough electricity is produced to run 12 14-watt CFLs at your house for 8 hours every day, all year long.
Furthermore, the sale of the energy generated by burning garbage helps with the cost of waste disposal as well.
So they're running 2 huge boilers up there. And do you know what happens to that water when it passes through the system?
As a matter of fact, I do. After the steam leaves the turbine, it passes through air-cooled condensers. The steam cools down and changes back to water.
Similar to that of a car radiator.
Very similar, but this cooling doesn't release any moisture into the atmosphere. Instead, it's recycled back into the boiler for reheating. The water used in the other parts of the process is also recycled.
And none of that water used gets dumped into the sewage system. The waste-to-energy plant is burning 24 hours a day, and the air is surprisingly clean. And that's something we can all be happy about.
And contrary to popular belief, this isn't smoke you're seeing. It's water vapor, or steam.
Now this is smoke. A dirty-looking vapor given off by a fire means the combustion process isn't complete. Thus, smoke.
And the vapor from the fire in the boilers goes through extensive cleaning before it goes up the stack and out into the air. Air pollution control begins in the boiler. That's where ammonia is sprayed into the gases. This creates a reaction which converts the nitrogen oxides into molecular nitrogen, oxygen, and water vapor. Next, powdered carbon is injected into the gases, enhancing the capture of dioxins, furans, and heavy metals.
Then the gases flow through an acid gas scrubber, and a slake of lime slurry is injected into the gas. So the lime slurry causes another chemical reaction that neutralizes the sulfur dioxide and hydrogen chloride. That's it.
As the gas cools, a dry powder forms. Then the freshly scrubbed gases go to the baghouse, where they're cleaned even more. The gas contains very fine ash called fly ash, as well as powdered lime.
The baghouse works like a vacuum cleaner, filtering the ash through more than 3,500 Gore-Tex bags. Those bags capture the fly ash, letting only the clean air out. So when you see a plume, it is because the moist air coming out of the stack is warmer than the air outside.
Plant employees using state-of-the-art equipment and computers are constantly sampling emissions from the stack. Those emissions must meet rigid pollution standards issued under the Federal Clean Air Act, the State of Washington Clean Air Act, and the rules of the Spokane Regional Clean Air Agency.
Under normal operating conditions, emissions are always well within permit limits and standards. In addition to meeting these emission limits, the facility must also continuously meet other performance and operating standards contained in the Air Operating Permit issued by Spokane Regional Clean Air Agency and operating permits issued by the Spokane County Health District.
Many natural and human-caused processes, including the burning of garbage, emit greenhouse gases, which cause climate change. However, the burning of garbage at Spokane's waste-to-energy facility actually reduces global greenhouse gas emissions.
And the burning of garbage reduces landfill methane emissions, produces electricity, which would otherwise have been produced by burning fossil fuels, and recovers ferrous metals, which are recycled.
On a life cycle basis, according to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, burning of a ton of garbage in a facility like Spokane's, rather than landfilling that ton of waste, actually reduces global greenhouse gas emissions equivalent to 1 ton of CO2.
And that's something worth cheering about.
But there's more work to be done with the fly ash captured in the baghouse. The ash is blasted out of the bags every couple of minutes by a burst of air moving at 300 miles per hour.
300 miles per hour? That's about twice as fast as a major hurricane. That's a lot of wind.
The air forces the fly ash out and down into a closed conveyor. Now, there are still heavy metals in the ash at this point, and because it's headed to a landfill, it's important that the metal particulates won't wash out in rainwater.
That's why the ash is treated with a reagent in a process called West Fix. It changes the metal back to a natural ore-like state.
We've been talking about the fly ash release, but there's also the bottom ash left over from the final phase of combustion. At the end of the grates, the bottom ash falls down into a quench tank filled with water.
After cooldown, the ramp ash expeller pushes it onto a vibrating conveyor system. The vibration evenly distributes the ash and breaks up clumps.
The conveyor moves it out to the ash handling building, which has been specially designed to keep the ash contained.
There's still large pieces of unburned metal in the ash, but a machine called the Grizzly Separator removes those pieces. Then the ash runs under a powerful rotating drum magnet to capture the ferrous metal.
The metal is then recycled into construction steel. Finally, the ash is taken in loads from the ash handling building. The loads are sealed and hauled by rail to a lined landfill 200 miles southwest of Spokane to Roosevelt, Washington.
So when you put this much garbage in the pit, you end up with this much ash.
Plus electricity. So it's easy to see that this much ash takes up a lot less space in the landfill than that trash.
The entire process is monitored from this control room. Well, waste to energy isn't quite rocket science, but this plant does require some special attention. The facility runs 24/7, and it only takes 5 employees per shift to run this entire plant.
Did you just say 5? As in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Well, yeah. But 1,400 areas are constantly monitored and controlled with special equipment.
And don't forget, this facility also must submit reports of these readings to regulatory agencies. Spokane County is growing. More people means more garbage. How much more do you think this plant can take?
Well, the people of Spokane County are already recycling more than half of their waste.
That's pretty good.
But the waste to energy facility is already at capacity. We have to be more conscientious about reusing and recycling.